Okay, so this simple application is going to be a coffee ordering service for the Santai Cafe. This is what it's going to look like. It's going to be a data input screen which says the title across the top, the Santai. It has a J combo box on the top left hand corner which allows you to choose the type of coffee. On the right of that, with the green box around it, are 3 radio buttons, only one of which can be selected at a time. Below is a quantity where you can type in how many coffees of that type, and a button which adds it to the list below. So again, top left is a J combo box, on the right 3 radio buttons, below it is a normal J button which has add on it, and a label and a J text field to allow you to input the quantity. Then below a JList, which gives you a list of the items you've ordered. On the right hand side, for a bit of fun, we'll stick a bit of a welcoming graphic in. Alright, this would be a first version. A second version, which would be a lot better, would change, if you see there, change the list to a J table, because that would allow us to have different columns and separate out, the order into the type of coffee, the size, the quantity, etc. But we're going to start off with this one first of all. So across to Eclipse, as always, we're going to start a new project for this one. And new Java project, I'm just going to call this one Cafe. And it's using Java 11, so it's going to need me to create a module file. So I'll allow Eclipse to create that. I don't really need it right now. In fact, I might as well just straight from the very beginning, I'm going to type in requires java.desktop, just so that I've got that out of the way. And save that. And now I'm going to make a package, as always as well. So I'm going to make a brand new Java package. I'll call this one Santai. And inside that, I'm going to make a new, well, it's not there, so I'm going to choose Window Builder, the Window Builder folder. And I'm going to go into Swing Designer and use a JFrame form. I'll call this one ordering, for example. Always start off your classes and your form names with a capital letter. Okay, so in design, I'm going to make sure that I've got those elements on there. Give myself a little bit of space here. I can remove the Project Explorer window now. This black stuff that you see around the edge, this will update in a second when it refreshes the screen and get rid of it. But in the meantime, I'm gonna select my JFrame form, the actual window, and make it a little bit bigger. Now this doesn't work if you've got the content pane selected, only if you've got the JFrame form. I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom. It's a bit hard to see because Window Builder hasn't displayed this very well, so I'm gonna try closing this down again and opening it. I'll go to Source, then back into Design again. Oh, it's been a bit awkward. Alright, so I'm going to close down ordering.java. I'll go back into Window again. I'll set my view so I've got my Project Explorer back, so I can go in there into my cafe, open up my form, and hope it displays properly this time. Here we go. Design. Oh, still awkward. Okay, never mind. When I start to put some controls onto it, it'll get better. Right, so I'm going to first of all put a J combo box on there. I'm going to set my content pane so the layout is absolute. Right, so back. I'm going to put that. There we go. It's better. So the J combo box, which goes on there. Resize that a little bit. Remember, when you're putting all of these controls on, the first thing you should do before you forget is to change the name of the variable. And when you're making variable names, it helps you if the first 3 letters of your variable, if it's a screen control, indicate what type of a control it is. So CMB, a lot of programmers use that for combo box. So CMB, I'm going to say coffee type. And beside that, I'm gonna, I might as well just go straight in and add some things into it now. I can edit the model. Remember, the data model means the contents of the box, not the way it looks, but the contents of the box. So if I say cappuccino, latte, americano, espresso, if I put those in, double S or single S, I can't remember. Does that look right? No, I think it's one. If I put those in, you'll see that these properties are all to do with the way it looks, whereas the actual model, the data model, is the contents that it can contain, the data that can be selected. And we'll see that in the code in a minute. If I click on source code, you can see that it has created a new combo box, which is currently empty, and then it's set the model, so it's added a data model in, and it's made a new default combo box model. We'll come back to that code in a minute, which contains the types of coffee that I typed in. Right, very handy to do it here though. Okay, so I'm going to do what I wanted to do before. I'm going to resize my window a little bit. Yeah, didn't quite hold. I'll try that again. I'll let go of my mouse button before I let go of the... Yeah, that's better. Okay, so I'm going to reorganize it a little bit. Remember, I need to look like my design here. So I needed 3, that was my combo box, J combo box. I need 3 radio buttons, Venti, Grande and Tall. And I need them organized so that I can only select one at a time. So they need to be within the same button group. So let me see, I'm going to go for J radio button, if I can find it. Layouts, components, J radio button, there we go. There's one. I'm just going to stack the one on top of each other to begin with. Yeah, 2. And 3. And instantly I'm going to change their names so that you can see it's already prefixed RBD, radio button, or RDBTN. Okay, I'm going to prefix it with 3 letters. I'm going to say RBN, radio button, RBN, and this one is going to be Venti. Okay, and I'm going to change the text as well. So go into the constructor and change the text to Venti. Spelt right. There we go, Venti. And at the same time, I can change the size a little bit. The next size would be, let's say RBD Grande would be the name of the variable, and the text Grande. And I'm going to change the size a little bit. Whoops, reduce that down so it's not taking up too much screen real estate. And this one would be RBD Tall. And I'll change the text also to be tall. Resize that a little bit. Now what I can do handily while they're all on top of each other, I can hold down select and I can make sure I've got all 3 of them and nothing else on the screen selected. Then 2-finger click or right click if you're in Windows, and I'm going to set a button group which encapsulates them in the same group so that only one of them can be pressed at a time. So I'm going to make a new standard, and you'll see that it appears down there, and because I had the 3 of them selected, they're all in there. So that means whenever I run it, it'll only allow me to select one of those. Now it's possible to make plenty of different button groups on one screen, so therefore you can have different groups of radio buttons that are independent of each other. Okay, now I've got these made. I can place them in the position I want them to be. Space them out enough so that whenever I click on one, it's only clicking on that individual one, not something it overlaps with. So for example, that Grande would have overlapped with that Tall, so I'm making it a bit smaller. Squeeze that down. There we go. So Venti doesn't overlap with Grande, Grande doesn't overlap with Tall. There we go. Okay, so next, what's next? I had a button and I had a label and a JText field to add the quantity. So J button, let's put that in, and that was a button to add. So let's change our variable name, btn add, And let's change our text on it. And we also wanted to know what quantity, so it's a J text field where they can type in the quantity. Can call this one txt quantity, and I needed a label above it just to let people know what that is, so I'm going to find a J label. Alright, pop that in just up there, and even though I'm probably not going to refer to this in the code, I'll still change its variable name so I know what it is. And it's text, of course, which is the important bit. Quantity. There we go. That's starting to look like what we wanted. And then the final thing on the very bottom, well, two more things. A picture here, and the final thing at the bottom was the JList, which has the contents of the order so far that gets added to when you press the button. So I'm going to put the list in first of all. Let's have a get out of the way. A JList. And I'm going to draw this. Be careful, if you just click on it, then you'll get a very, very small list. So you have to draw it on there. Oh, that was nasty. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So something's obviously gone wrong. Looks like Eclipse. Okay, looks like Eclipse has wanted to do something and hasn't been able to. Let's see what's going on. I'm going to see the source and see if there's a problem with the source. That is obviously failed. While I was adding in the JList, it looks like the plugin has failed. Alright, it hasn't actually written anything. So I'm going to close that down, and I'm going to save it, and then open it up again. Okay, so we'll just ignore that, pretend that didn't happen. Let's go back to the JList, and we'll add in a JList again. Hope it works this time. Good, much better. Right, and the final, oh sorry, I'll change the variable name. Let's call it LST order. LSL order, no, LST order. And if you remember, the way that we put a graphic in there is by adding a label. So I'm going to put a label here. I'm going to change its name, label to Prabhu, who's the person whose photograph I've found to put in there. And its text, I want to get rid of that text or else it'll appear across the image. So I'm just going to delete that for now, but I'm going to change its icon property. Now at the moment, because I'm just testing, I'm not packaging this up as an application, I'm just going to choose an absolute path, which would not include it in a jar if we exported it right now. We'll show you how to do that a little bit later. So I think I had an image in here. A quick look. I think I had Prabhu somewhere here. Otherwise on my desktop. Okay, coming back to that in a minute then. Seems like I've deleted my image. Okay, never mind. That will have a, we'll come back to that in a minute. We'll put an image in there a little bit later on. Let's get rid of that label for now. Okay, so the idea is that when we run this, we should be able to select the coffee type, the size, the number, and then click on add, and it gets automatically added into the label. Now this is where we need to understand the difference between a model, which is the data model, and the visual part of the label on the right hand side. The data model, in this case it's going to be a default list model, is going to contain those 4 different types of coffee, whereas the visual control, which is a JCombo box, which displays the data from the list model, has lots of stuff like font, color, size, etc. But it's also got 2 useful methods. One's get model and another one's set model, where you can change the contents of it. And the model on the left has add element, get element, set size, remove, is it empty, etc. So it's got all the operations for changing the data. So let's go back to Eclipse. I'm going to put an event handler on that button, so it does something on the button, an action performed. And from that action performed, I'm going to call a function to keep it all nice and tidy. So I don't just put code right in the middle here. I'm going to say add a coffee. Okay, so that function hasn't been written yet, so it comes up red. Obviously it's an error, but I'm going to put it in now. I'm going to find a space between the end of that method and the end of the class. So private void add coffee, doesn't take any parameters. And what that's going to do is it's going to add something to the list. First of all, it's going to find the data model for the list. Then it's going to add the order into the data model, and then that will appear inside the list. So first of all, the list is created here and it's currently empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert in there a new default list model, so that it has an empty list, an empty container in there that I can add stuff into, and that way that whenever I can get that back off it later on. I'm basically inserting an empty box in there for it to store the orders in. So my list is called list order, and it's currently only accessible inside this function. So if I were to type in there lst order in another function, it wouldn't find it. So what I have to do is I have to declare this outside at the level of the class, so that it's available outside this one place where it's created. So I'm going to say list order. I'm going to use it there, but I'm actually going to declare it at the beginning of the class. So I'm going to put it up here. JList list order, which means that that variable list order is available in the whole program, the whole class, and I can use it there. And oh, what's the error here? Multiple JList is a raw data type. Okay. So JList list order is correct, and here list order equals new JList default model. That's weird. What's wrong with that? Okay. Alright, okay, so I need a obviously I forgot to do this. So I need a new default list model in there. That's correct. And it's going to tell me that I haven't imported default list model. I bet you. Let me just try that. Default list model X, and there we go. And it's going to ask me to import default list model. That was a bit cryptic, which solves that one. So basically, it didn't know what a default list model was, so I had to tell it to add it to the very top. So now up at the very, very top, it's imported default list model. So now it knows what it is. You can add it yourself automatically, or you can type it in so that it asks you, do you want to import it? Okay, so there's my empty box. It's in there now. So the first step is I need to get a reference to the data model for that list. So I'm going to say listorder.getModel, which is good, but I need to store it in a variable. So I'm going to say default list model, let's call it order, equals listorder.getModel. Now there is an error with that. I'll come back to that in a second. Right. Then the second step is that I have to add a coffee in there. So for now, I'm just going to say order dot add element, and I can, well, for now I'm just going to put in hello there. In a second I'll modify that so that it has my order, but let's sort out this error first. Default list model is a specific type of list model that we're going to use here. List order gives me something more generic back. It gives me a list model back. So I need to change that. I just need to say default list model in there. For now we'll just accept that we have to do that with every list and every table that we're using. By the way, if you're using a table, it would be default table model. If you're using a list, it's default list model, etc., etc. Right, so if I run this, every time I press the button for add, it's gonna ignore all of this. It's just gonna add hello onto that list. And out of interest, it's pretty hard to scroll up and down there at the minute. So what I should really be doing is taking that list and inserting it inside a scroll pane. So let's look at that. Surround with Javax swing scroll pane. Okay, so now you'll see that there are no scroll bars there at the minute, but whenever I run that, and if I add more hellos in, I'm going to get a scroll bar appearing on the right hand side, so I can go up and down. Okay, right. So now that I have, let's quickly finish this off. Now that I have a control there and I can add into it, let's actually add the correct data in, i.e. the order. So I am going to look at, when I press this button, I'm going to look at what's been selected in each of these, and I'm going to add that into the order. So first of all, let's get the coffee type. Now question, if I, in my combo box here, am I able to see this? Is this visible from outside the method? You can see it's not, it's just defined locally. So I need to take that and define it up here, or declare it up there. And of course, if I declare it up there, then I shouldn't be mentioning its type again down here. So I'm going to need access to that. That's done. I'm also going to need access to the radio button group. So it's somewhere down here. Radio button group. There we go. So it's actually being called button group. Okay, fine. So button group, and is that visible? It is visible. Okay, that's great. It's visible through the whole application, so I can use that. And just to check that I can use that, I'm going to say inside here, I'm going to say button group. How's the capitalization? Button group, that's correct. So button group dot. All right. Final button group, only use a new button group. Okay, button group with a capital G. There we go. Right, so I can count how many are in. I can clear it. I can do an is selected, set selected. What about a get selected? Get selection. There we go. Which returns the model for the selected button. All right. Dot get. Here's the group. Contains equals first element get int class. All right, so this will return me a selection. It'll return me a reference to the selected. Hang on. Get selection dot. selected objects, right, which will return me an array of objects. This is getting okay. There's another way to do this. Instead of going through the button group, I can go directly to the button. So what I'm going to do here, because it's just a simple situation, is I'm going to make each of these radio buttons accessible outside that function. So I'm going to take the radio button venti, going to do exactly the same thing with it, put it up there. So radio button venti, radio button tall, and radio button grande. Define those at the start, so I don't need to define them again, and they're available in the whole class. And RBN, I think it is. RBN. Might as well call them, instead of RBD, might as well just do them all RBN, radio button. Bit of renaming there. You don't have to do this. I like to keep my names all the same type. Alright, so I now have access to all of those. So what I can say is, if RBN tall dot is selected. So if it's been selected, then inside there I can put my what the actual selection type is. In fact, here's an even better way to do it. String message equals, and make that an empty string to begin with. And then I'm going to say if RBN is selected, then I can say message dot concat. I can say equally, I can just say message equals message plus. Tall. And there we go. Else if RBN grande dot is selected, then message equals message plus grande. There's only one other possibility. Semicolon. Else message equals message plus venti. Okay, so that's the size. The first thing will be the coffee, so I need to get the type of coffee. So the type of coffee is in the combo box, so it's CMB coffee dot coffee type, was it? Coffee type dot get selected index. Okay, that will return the position of it, and what I need to do is I need to look at the data model for that and find out what is at that position. So let's see, int position, so that would be 0 if the first thing is selected, 1 if the second thing is selected, etc. So I can say coffee string coffee type, coffee text equals CMB coffee type dot get selected hang on, selected item. There we go. And inside that I'm going to say position. Is that right? Let's see. What's wrong there? Not accessible from the arguments. Alright, that's not right. So just get selected item dot toString. Okay, so I can just do it like that. I don't need the selected index. That's fine. So that's the coffee text. This is the size, and then I need to know the quantity. So int coffee quantity equals, and this is where I'm going to have to parse it. So I'm going to say integer dot parse int, and I'm going to say the text from that text field is txt quantity dot get text. Alright, now there could be an error there, of course. So, forgot my semicolon. There could be an error there. So what I'm going to do is do a try and catch around it. So I'm going to try that. And I'm going to catch exception for now. Exception E. And I'm going to say E dot print stack trace so I can see what it is. Right, what's my error here? If that's selected, then message equals grande. Yeah, that should close with a curly bracket. Oh, it's okay. Doesn't need it. Equals grande. Else message equals message plus venti. Why did I put that there? It's weird. Okay. Right. So now that I've got all of these things, now I can add it in here. I can say I want plus coffee quantity. Coffee quantity. Spell it right. Coffee quantity plus, I'll have a space after that, plus coffee type. Coffee text I called it. Alright. Plus, was there anything else? Size. No? Hang on, no, so it's one quantity, yeah, then size. Plus a space. And then plus message, which I had, that's my variable for the size. Okay. Could have chosen a better variable name, but okay. Coffee quantity. Is that right? Coffee quantity, yep. What's wrong with that? Coffee quantity cannot be resolved. Coffee quantity, did I spell that right? So, because I define it inside a try, of course, so it's not going to exist outside that code block. So I'm just going to take that, and I'll define it outside the code block, and I'll give it a default of 0, so that if anything goes wrong, I know I'm not going to order a coffee by accident. There we go. Alright, it'd be a miracle if this works first time, but let's give it a shot. Just check it, parses okay. Yeah, still looks the same. Let's run it. So cappuccino, venti, I'll have 2 of them please. Oh, there we go. Americano, grande, I'll have 5 please. And I'll have a tall, even though it doesn't make any sense, a tall espresso. 5 of them. There we go. Okay, so the only thing I have left to do is add an appropriately sized image in there and maybe a nice label across the top. But the idea that here, every time we want to add something to a control, we have to do 2 things. First of all, we have to get the data model, and secondly, add something in. So this was version 1, this is with a list. I'll try and find an appropriate image and put it in, and then we'll try version 2.